Laracon EU. I hope everyone can hear me correctly. I'm super excited to be here today. And my name is Nuno Maduro, as Michael F. said. I am the creator of multiple open source packages on the PHP ecosystem, and I'm also Laravel core team member. In addition, I'm creator of one of the most popular testing frameworks in the world, Pest PHP. And today, it's all about Pest. I'm going to show you what Pest is, what makes Pest so special, and I'm going to show you some of the new cool things coming for Pest this fall. That being said, if you don't know what Pest is, it's pretty much this elegant PHP testing framework with a focus on simplicity. And since we have released Pest v1 on spring 2021, we already have managed to convince more than 50% of the Laravel developers that Pest should be their default testing framework. Now, let me show you some of the things that makes Pest so special. I'm going to move here into my terminal. So that is a lot of live code, by the way. And in case you don't know, this is a testing framework that ships with Laravel, which is called PHP Unit. Has been the framework in the industry for a while now. And when you look at the PHP Unit test, it looks like this. You have a namespace, a bunch of uses, a class that extends something, a trait, a comment, and then a public function to actually see your first test. Now, when you go to the terminal to execute PHP Unit, the only thing you have to do, of course, is type vendor bin PHP Unit, and this is the output that you get. PHP Unit 10 by Sebastian, the runtime, the configuration, a bunch of stuff that we don't care. Okay? So I want to show you an alternative, which is called Pest PHP. And to get started, the only thing you have to do is clear your terminal and type on top composer require pest php /pest. Once you execute this command, you can clear your terminal again, and then you type vendor bin pest php. Now, there is a couple of things that you can understand from this output. The first of one is that it's gorgeous, okay? So it's spaced on top, bottom, left, and right have these beautiful green messages for each passing test, but it's a progressive testing framework, so I didn't have to change a thing on my existing PHP Unit test suite to have it working. Now, it's beautiful when there is a successful output, but if I go here, for example, and I assert the status is something like 404, I will have a failure. And instead of PHP Unit, which gives me like this bunch of text, which is kind of hard to understand what's happening, Pest PHP will show me this beautiful code snippet that really points me to the right direction and helps me understanding what is going wrong. So the terminal output was one of the first things that made Pest so special, but we also have something that I think you will really like. So I'm going to make this test pass again, just like that, and it should be working, and it is. And the second thing that makes Pest so special, especially on the version 1, was the testing API. So again, we look at this PHP Unit API of writing tests. It's obviously a class-oriented approach of writing tests, but there is a lot of boilerplate. Classes, extends, traits, public functions, all this stuff. So I'm going to show you something different. It's the API of Pest PHP. So to get started, the only thing you have to do is copy the content of your test. So I just did a copy paste. And then I'm going to remove all of this boilerplate. Bam, all gone. And the only thing I'm going to type is that it has a welcome page, just like that. I'm going to provide a function, copy paste the content of my test, save it, run Pest on the terminal again, and it's still working as expected. So this content right here, which now makes about 7 lines, is the equivalent of everything we had before, which is an API way more simple, way more minimalist, and I think you really liked it. And if you think that you are losing any features by using this new API, that's not true. So something you probably would do in PHP Unit is something like skipping a test. That's also available on Pest, as you can see. So if I run Pest here, you will see the test being skipped. And I can group this particular test if I want to, just by doing group and then providing the string name. But it also provides some goodies on this API, such as if I want to only run this particular test because I'm using Sublime Text instead of PHP Storm, for example, I can just change this only method. And now we'll only run this particular test. I can also mark this particular test as a to-do simply by chaining the to-do method. So we have a bunch of goodies about this new API, and all of them are documented in our website. So beautiful output, a new testing API, but we also shipped especially Pest v1, with something really cool called the expectation API. And to showcase that to you, I'm going to move here to my unit folder, which I have still a PHP unit test. So far we have been working with a Pest test, but also a PHP unit test, and both work together on the same test suite. Now, looking at this code right here, you can see that I'm using the assertion API, which comes with PHP unit, which is this assert and then calling the method name. But the first thing I'm going to do here is migrate this particular test to Pest PHP. So I'm going to just copy the content and then really just follow the same rules. I'm going to type test basic on top, provide a closure just like that, and just copy paste it within my function body. And if I do this, obviously, things should just still work as expected. Now again, here we are working with assertion API, which comes with PHP unit, which you just call by using this assert. However, I'm going to show you something different, which is the expectation API. The expectation API was built to kind of go against some of the things I didn't like about the assertion API. Some of them are, as you can see, we are asserting 3 things, and you need to provide the value 3 times. Other stuff I didn't like is that I cannot chain assertions, so I need to always refer to this variable. And then some of these methods doesn't feel like Laravel. I don't know about you, but assert string contains string is just not Laravel to me. You know, it doesn't even fit the screen. So, yeah. So an alternative is the expectation API, which just starts like this. You type expect, and then you provide the value. And this just happens once. You provide the value just once. And then for the first assertion, I just need to type to be string, okay? I can just remove this one. For the second one, not to be int, so I just will prefix this with not to be int. And every time you want to negate an expectation, you just provide the modifier not. And finally, the last one, you just do it like Laravel, to contain Laracon. Okay? So effectively, we just have migrated this entire snippet of code to a more elegant and sophisticated API called the expectation API. And again, this feels like Laravel to me. It's minimal, simple, and I really like it. And it has the best method in the world, which is DD. So I can just do this, and I get to see the value on the terminal. All right, so this was the gist of Pest v1. I always like to make this kind of recap for people who are not familiar with it. Let's just go back to our slides and talk a little bit about Pest v2, which was out the spring this year. Now, Pest v2 was a major release and a very important release for us. And I'm proud to say that we just have reached 10 million downloads on the Pest PHP testing framework. Thank you. And for me, this is a very important number because I have packages with millions of downloads, but having like a framework where people need to opt out from something that already exists for years to really choose Pest PHP is something that makes me really proud. And was the very first release that introduced it or start using this plugin system. So Pest has this plugin system internally that we have the framework very minimal, but we have the community or even ourselves plugging optional features that people can and may require through Composer. Some of these plugins are here, not all of them. So we have profile analysis, code coverage reports, type coverage reports, architectural testing, watch mode, snapshot testing, and so much more. And I think, like, I'm saying this without any kind of issue. I think that Pest PHP is today the most complete testing framework in the world. And so I don't have time to show you all of these plugins today because I want to show you some new stuff. But I'm going to show you my favorite, which is the architectural plugin. Now, the architectural plugin is really tailored and made for people who have big teams and want to ensure some architectural styling in their code. You may know, like, in big teams, everyone have their own opinions about code and how code should be, and sometimes it's complicated to just spend a lot of time validating these pull requests and really try to reach an agreement. So it would be kind of cool to have somehow a way of detailing a guideline and then have Pest PHP just checking that for you. So I'm going to show you some examples. I'm going to move here into my code again, and I have this file called architectural testing, which I'm going to just rename it to architecturaltesting.php. And the first thing the plugin allows you to do is test where and what dependencies can get used. So Laravel is a dependency of a project. And one of those dependencies is called DD. We all love DD, and the dump function are our favorite ways of debugging for some of us. However, what we don't love is shipping DDs to production by mistake. So what you can do with architectural testing, And I have done that a lot. So something you can do is type this, task globals, expect, dd, and dump, not to be used. 3 lines of code. It took me 3 seconds to write this, and now I go to vendor bin pest, and pest PHP is automatically detecting DDs on my code. So here, I'm going to go to my user controller, which obviously have a leftover of a DD. I can go there, so I'm going to open app, HTTP, controllers, user controller, and indeed I have screw up. I have this DD right here. I'm going to remove it, clear my terminal, run pest, and now we have our test suite passing again. 3 lines of code takes you 3 seconds to write, and no longer ship DDs to production. Other thing I really like about the architectural plugin is the possibility of writing guidelines for a separation of concerns. I don't know about you, I'm a big fan of the repository pattern. So in my applications, I always have this user repository which lives within the repositories folder, and every single interaction with my models needs to happen on this particular file. It's just a way of encapsulating things, and I really liked it. Now, something I would like to do is just enforce this. So every time someone's used a model somewhere, Pest PHP detects that. And we can do that. So I'm going to just go here to my architectural testing once again, and I'm going to type the following. Test models, expect everything under app models to only be used in app repositories. And again, you type this once, you run past, and Pest PHP is now detecting that effectively I'm using my user model within my user controller instead of using it in a repository. So I can just fix this issue. I'm going to go here to my user controller, and yeah, as you can see, I'm importing the user on top and then referring to my user model directly. I want to use my user repository instead, so what I'm going to do is just remove this import on top, and instead of referring to the model itself, I'm going to inject through dependency injection my repository, user repository, and then finally I'm going to just type this users all. And if clear my terminal, run past, now it's just passing as expected. So a very easy way of declaring a separation of concerns in your app. You write it once, and that's it. So this was kind of the gist of the architectural plugin on the very earliest days. We knew that it would evolve over the weeks, and now we just have shipped new cool stuff that I'd like to show you. How many of you is like fan of strict types and PHP code? Nobody? Okay. All right, some of you, that's cool. So for those who are not, maybe I will convince you to use them, because I'm going to move here into my, where they are, this value objects folder, and I have this address class. Now, something that probably you don't know is that if I go here and I, for example, create an instance of this address, which as you can see receives a string, PHP allows me to provide a boolean if I want to. And now if I refer to this value property, which is right here, using property promotion with the new feature of PHP, the value of this property will be the string 1. Okay? So I hope I have managed to convince some of you to use string types. And so this is something we would like to avoid. So what you can do is basically just remove this and write this on top. Declare string types equals 1. Now, this is cool to do, but something you would like to have is some kind of validator to ensure that this always happens. So what you can do is go to your architectural testing file and just type this. Test string types, expect everything under app namespace, so it's my entire application, to use string types. 3 lines of code, and now your entire app will use string types forever. So here, it's complaining, of course, about the address value object. I can just go there, add string types on top, and bam, that's it, test suite passing as expected. So kind of a cool way to really just do it once, and you don't have to worry forever about these kind of things. Let me show some other examples we have on this architectural plugin. I don't know about naming or about what you like to do, but for example, in my case, I like to have this controller abstract class that ships with Laravel, which is right here. And I always like to have my controller suffix it with the word controller. It's just a convention because I always like to ensure consistency across my code base. So if we have a user controller suffixed with the word controller, I kind of want to ensure that all controllers are suffixed with controller. However, not everyone agrees with it, and we always have this non-Laravel developer who comes up with these crazy names like thread, response, handler, non the thing. And this yeah, and it's just confusing because you kind of want to ensure like some consistency in your code. So what you can do here is just really get back to architectural testing and type this instead. Test controllers, expect everything under app HTTP controllers to have suffix controller, okay? And again, you do it once, and every single controller will have to have the suffix controller for the remaining of your life. And of course, it's complaining about this thread response handler, non the thing. I can just go there and rename this to the proper name, which is thread controller.php. And I can also rename the class to thread controller, clear my terminal, run Pest, and now it's just obviously passing as expected. So it's a very cool way to ensure just consistency across your code base regarding naming. Let me show you some other things about this architectural plugin, because we do have a lot of stuff here. You guys familiar with the concept of read-only classes? Yeah, some of you are, I guess, because it's a new feature of PHP. It's kind of cool, especially for value objects like this address class. You kind of want to ensure that the value is immutable over time, so it never changes during the runtime of your project. And something you can do with PHP 8.2 is just basically come here and type read-only class. So it's kind of a new feature, and I like to use it a lot. However, again, you want to ensure this kind of stuff. So something you can do is type the test value objects, expect everything in an app value objects to be read-only. You clear your terminal, run Pest, and hopefully it's complaining about the class address, which it is. I can just come here, put read-only modifier, and now it's passing as expected. And we can move forward. We can do so much more about this. You guys know what is final classes, right? You guys like final classes? Come on, raise your hand if you like final classes. Nobody likes final classes. That's right. So it's kind of cool to discuss about these things, but it would be even better if we have Pest kind of ensuring there is no final classes like forever. So you can just type not to be final. And now Pest is still passing because I don't have final classes. I can just, if I go here, obviously we'll just complain about this. Yuck, let's just remove it. And it is passing. Yeah, this is the best feature of the Pest project, by the way. Okay, so still about value objects. I like to keep them simple, so they shouldn't extend anything or really implement anything whatsoever. Something I can do is just type to extend nothing, just like that. And now it's still passing, of course. I can come here to my controller test. You guys remember that I told you that we have this abstract controller? So I want to ensure that every single controller extends that. So I can type to extend, and then this controller class. Okay, it is still passing, of course. I can just come here and type to implement nothing as well to really ensure that none of my value objects implements any interface whatsoever. So a really cool way of defining a guideline to your project. You write this stuff within an afternoon with your team and pretty much ensure consistency across your code base forever. So this is the architectural plugin. And I think it's something really cool. I'm using it literally all the time. Even at Laravel internally, we use it to make sure classes are not final, of course. And yeah, so I could spend here all day speaking about what we have on Pest PHP. However, every Laracon I like to introduce something new to the Pest PHP family, and this one is no different. I've been working on something new for the last 2 months, which is really useful for people like me who like to test their applications and how they behave under heavy load. So today, I'm proud to introduce you to Stressless, which is the ultimate stress testing tool for Pest PHP. So how many of you know how your application behaves with 50 concurrent users or even 100 concurrent users? We have no idea. And the thing is your application ready for something like Black Friday? is something kind of hard to test. It would be kind of cool to have a tool written in PHP for those kind of things. So that's exactly what this stress test plugin is about, and I'm going to show you some of the examples you can do with it. So for today, I had this brilliant idea of stress testing the Laracon.au website. Because obviously it's not mine, so if it goes wrong, that's not a problem for me. So, all right, so to get started with stress testing, there is two ways. The first one is the easiest one, which you just go to your terminal and you type vendor-bin pest stress and you provide a domain. So here I'm going to just type vendor-bin pest stress and then laracon.au, and let's see how it goes, okay? I'm stressed about this, but let's see. All right, so first of all, we have stress testing laracon.au on top. Then we have this beautiful bar which tells me that the test is intended to be in 5 seconds. Then we have some progress telling you the average duration of each request or the total of the requests. And then we have the result on the bottom. So a lot to impact here. Let's just make this bigger so everyone on the back can see. I'm going to stress test it again because even if it fails, I don't care. Website is not mine, right? So. All right, stress testing again. The results should be very similar, of course, and you kind of want to see that as well, that the results are always the same. So here we have the result on the bottom, and let's just analyze some of these results here. So obviously the test duration was about 5 seconds. That's the default test duration. The test concurrency, which is the number of concurrent users we are using, is just 1. So I was not really stress testing the thing, but I was using 1 concurrent request. I can see that during the time of 5 seconds, Laracon.au was able to handle 74 requests. And then we have the success rate of 100%. This is something insanely important when dealing with stress testing, is that you want to be sure that even if request duration increases a little bit, the user always gets a response. Now, just below, I have the DNS duration and the TLS handshake. If you don't have values close to 0, meaning that you are not using Google as DNS resolver. And just below, we have the most important metric of this test, which is the request duration, which is 65 milliseconds. That's a very good result, by the way. That means that you are getting an average of 65 milliseconds per request. This particular section is split by 3, upload of the request, time to the first byte, and this includes everything within the infrastructure, including the server processing time. And then just below, the download. If you have a download bigger than the time to the first terabyte, it can mean 2 things. The first one is that you are using streaming, which is a good thing. And the second one, if you have a huge value, means that you are downloading too much stuff on the request, okay? So yeah, I could use like a big concurrency here, but I don't want to put the website down. So let's just basically clear our terminal and use something in our internal network. Because network is a big thing when doing stress testing. If you really want to ensure and test your application only, you kind of want to exclude the network out of the scene and test the thing internally. And I want to do that now. And to do that, I'm going to use this server that we all know, call it PHP Artisan Serve, which we may have used it once for local development. And the PHP Artisan Serve command has something that some people don't know, which is single-threaded, meaning that it's not good handling concurrency. So what I can do here is that I'm going to just copy this local IP address. And I'm going to go to this particular terminal. I'm going to type vendor-bin pest stress and then this local IP address. Now, a couple of things to impact here. Obviously, the network is no longer in consideration, so the request average duration will be lower. And I can see that we have an average of 10 milliseconds per request. That's like insanely fast. However, in this particular test, we are using 1 concurrency. So that's not a lot for a stress test. And I'm able to see as well that we have a throughput of 90 requests per second, okay? So I'm going to do something funny here, which is clear my terminal and do the same test, but now with concurrency 2. So to bump the concurrency, you just pass this option, dash concurrency 2, and let's just execute this. And you will see something interesting. Now the request duration is about 20 milliseconds. So concurrency 1, 10 milliseconds, concurrency 2, 20 milliseconds. This is already telling me something about my server. My server is not good handling concurrency. multiple users at the same time. And you can clearly see that on this result. We have the same throughput of 90 requests per second, so that didn't change, and the request duration just doubled. And if I keep doing it, if I clear my terminal and run this with concurrency 4, for example, you will see that the request duration will just increase to 40 milliseconds. So this is not good, and our server is not good handling concurrency. We can fix this. I can clear my terminal, change here to the other terminal which runs the server, clear it as well, and use Laravel Octane instead. So I'm going to type php-artisan octane start, get back to the terminal which I'm executing this stress test, and I'm going to run it with concurrency 1. Now, the results are obviously, by the way, way faster. We are on an average of 3 milliseconds per response. Laravel is just fast, you know? 3 milliseconds per response average is like insanely fast. No, there is no application who needs this kind of speed, to be honest. And we have a throughput which increases from 90 with the php-artisan server request to 250 requests per second. So that's a lot. But even better, if I clear my terminal and I come here and I increase this even more with concurrency 2, you will see that Laravel Octane is very good handling concurrency. The request average didn't change, so it's still 3 milliseconds, okay? The throughput just doubled from 250 to 500 requests per second. So Laravel Octane is insanely good handling concurrency. I can just come here, clear my terminal, use concurrency 4. Okay? Like, no website needs this kind of performance, to be really honest, unless you are using something really big. But as you can see, like, the throughput just keeps increasing. The request duration still at 3 milliseconds average, so insanely fast. So you can easily adapt this to something like your own personal case, which is probably dealing with PHP FPM, and tweak the PHP FPM settings to fit your own needs. Now, this is one component of stress testing on Pest PHP, but we do have more. So I'm going to clear my terminal here, and I'm going to move back to my test suite. So we still have our Sublime Text, the best editor in the world, and I'm going to move here, and I'm going to create a new file within my test suite. So I'm going to just type here stressed test.php, just a regular test file. Then I'm going to open the PHP tag, our favorite language, and I'm going to type test landing page. I'm going to provide the closure, and within this closure, as usual, we are going to get our test function. Now I'm going to import something very pretty on top called a use function pest stressless stress, which is a function we are going to use. And then I'm going to call a variable with the name result, which will be the result of the stress to the IP address we have locally, which is this one, still with Octane, by the way. Move back here, and I'm going to say stress this particular local domain and give me the result. Once we have the result, we have a bunch of things you can analyze. If you're using PHP Storm, you'll have like good autocompletion. If you don't, just be a little bit like me. I will have to guess it. So result requests, which give you the metrics of all the requests. And I can do something like this. Expect requests failed count to be 0. Remember, the success rate needs to be 100%. That means the failed count needs to be 0. So if I go to my test suite and I run vendor bin pest instead, you will see that hopefully my test suite will pass, and it is, as you can see. So our stress tests have 0 failed responses, success rate of 100%, and that's why our test suite is passing. Some of you may want to have this verbose output. So something you can do here is just come here and chain the dump function after your test. And now you will see that you will have this beautiful output about stress testing right here on the bottom of your console. And we have everything we just have saw previously. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so it doesn't get in your way. And as you can see, we have still the stress testing output right here on the bottom. Everything you were seeing before, you now see on the terminal, including the success rate of 100%, meaning that the failed count request is 0. I can just move forward and test multiple things, really to ensure that over time, my application behaves exactly the same. So I'm going to just chain here, expect, requests, duration, medium to be less than, we are in what, 3 milliseconds? Let's give a threshold of 10 milliseconds, for example. Okay, clear my terminal, run to Pest once more, and now obviously we have the request duration of 3 milliseconds, meaning that it's below 10 milliseconds, which is the value we provide here. And that's why it's passing as expected. And I can see yourself cabling this kind of stuff to your GitHub workflow, or even to do it after the deployment, and really ensure that the duration of each request doesn't increase after a pull request, or even make sure that things are still working as expected, even if you are doing deployments on Friday. Okay? So this was the stress test plugin. It is coming out for Pest PHP this fall. Now, if you liked it, what you just saw, please go to the pestphp.com website. We have this beautiful website made by Kaneko, and it's gorgeous. You can just click on Get Started, and you will see documentation. Even for some of you who are really just getting started with testing, we have amazing examples. How can you test your local applications, really to get started with testing and Pest PHP. Now, there is one more thing. Okay, I told you that Stressless is coming out this fall. However, Stressless is coming out today. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Nuno. See you all out there.
Thanks, Nuno. Just one question from the audience. Well, there was more, but we're going to ask one. What would be the best strategy to start writing tests for a project that doesn't have any and is also not really testable? Where to start and what to test?
Wow.
As quickly as possible.
Yeah, I will try. So for that particular project, what I would do is not stress testing, but instead just do some smoke testing, which is basically getting the homepage and ensure it returns at 200. It takes like 1 second to write that test, and by doing that, you are testing so much already. So I would just basically write a regular Laravel test to ensure that the page is working and responding, and that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Nuno.
Thank you so much.